Hey, what's up, guys? This is Benny Ricciardi with rotocurve.com, and I'm here with our Benny's Bats edition for today, Monday, June 13th. We have a pretty nice 10-game slate on tap for tonight. Some good pitchers on the mound, some good pitchers in tough spots as well. And pitching is actually a little bit tough today, so make sure you go over to rotocurve.com and check out the On the Bump article that Josh Kalachi puts up every day. He breaks down the pitching better than I can and, goes about as in depth with it as I do with the hitters. So between this video about the hitters and that video about the pitchers, you should be able to put together a pretty good lineup for tonight and make some money. We're going to start right at the top here. Chicago Cubs are playing against the Washington Nationals today, and Max Scherzer's on the mound for the Nationals. Now, he pitched against the Cubs on 5-6. He went 5 innings, gave up 7 hits, 7 runs. 4 of those runs were by home run as well. This is definitely not an easy matchup for him. Home runs have been a problem for him in 2016, and he has been tough on right-handed bats. So you kind of want to look at the lefties here. A guy like Anthony Rizzo, I think, is in a good spot. He's 2 of 5 lifetime against Scherzer with a home run. Ben Zobrist was the hero last game. He had 2 home runs. He's actually only 5 of 22 lifetime as a switch hitter batting from the left side against Scherzer. But 3 of those 5 hits have been for home runs. So he does hit Scherzer for a little bit of power, which, like we said, is the problem that Scherzer has with those lefties. We also have Jason Hayward, who's 4 of 8 lifetime against them. I know Hayward hasn't had the best season, but he started to heat up since the month of June started. So I think he's another guy that we can look at. If you're going to play anybody against Scherzer here, it's probably something you do in a tournament to be a little bit more contrarian, and you're probably looking only at the left-handed bats on the Cubs. I do think this Cubs team is good. Definitely do not think I'm going to have a lot of shares, if any, of Scherzer today, maybe 1 in a tournament or so. I don't think he's going to be highly owned, though. I think it's going to be contrarian because a lot of people do know how good the Chicago, offense is. And like I said, I don't think it's a good spot for Scherzer, so I'm going to be staying away from him today. On the other side of this game, we got Hendricks, and Kyle Hendricks has been really good in 2016. 2.9 ERA, a whip of 0.94. Left-handed bats do have a slightly higher average against them, but like I said, neither side of the plate is really hitting all that well against them. The lefties are how I would attack them. Looking at Washington, that obviously means a guy like Bryce Harper. 453 WOBA, 328 ISO against right-handed pitching. 2 of 7 lifetime with a home run already off of Hendricks. And then the other guy is Daniel Murphy, who you guys know I love. As long as teams are going to be pitching around Bryce Harper, Murphy's always getting up with men on base. He's got a batting average around 385, 390 this year. 379 WOBA, 222 ISO since the start of last season. He is only 1 of 8 lifetime against Hendricks, but he is the kind of guy that profiles to do pretty well against them. So I am expecting him to improve on those numbers if, they see each other a couple times going forward. Next game we can look at Philadelphia at Toronto. We got Jared Eichhoff on the mound for Philly, and he's actually pretty tough on right-handed bats. Left-handed bats have a much higher average against them. I think almost like 80, 90 points higher. They're hitting about 283 against them this year in 2016. He's been up and down. He's had some really, really good starts. He's had some pretty bad starts. I know he had a, big one against Chicago, either his last start or maybe 2 starts ago. But again, it kind of came a little bit out of nowhere. This is a guy at the beginning of the season was striking out like a batter per inning. Like I said, really tough on righties. Lefties are okay with him. The one left-handed bat I might look at on Toronto is Michael Saunders. 345 ISO, 345 WOBA, 172 ISO. Doesn't exactly scream this is a guy to start, but he has been hitting the ball well lately. He's been putting up some pretty good numbers, and he is probably the best left-handed bat on Toronto. Hopefully he's hitting somewhere around the middle of that order where he can drive some runs in here today. If you want to look at the right-handed bats, you got guys like Batista, Donaldson, and Encarnacion who all do well in righty-on-righty matchups, but like I said, it's Eichhoff is very tough on the righty, so I don't think it's going to be an easy day for any of these guys. Not a great matchup overall for Toronto today. I wouldn't be looking for, they'll probably get a couple runs, but I wouldn't be looking for them to explode. On the other side, we got R.A. Dickey, and let's face it, this guy is not the pitcher that he was. Has not had a great 2016 so far. Does have limited BVP against this Phillies team, and against the knuckleballer, BVP is usually something we kind of rely on more than some of the other numbers. Just a few things I'll throw out there. Freddie Galvis is 4 of 12 against them with a home run. Cesar Hernandez is 2 of 3 the last time they played. Odubel Herrera was 1 of 2 with a walk. I think guys like Maikel Franco and Tommy Joseph, if they're in the lineups, could be some guys that could hit him. right-handed bats actually do pretty well against the knuckleball, even though, Dickey is a right-hander. So like I said, you kind of throw out most of the normal analysis that we do and try to look more towards, what guys have done against them in the past. Galvis is the only one with even a little of a sample size. And I mean, 12 is not a very big sample size to, kind of hang your hat on, but he has hit him well. I think Herrera could hit him. I think Cesar Hernandez, if he's up the top of the order, is interesting. Guys like Franco and Tommy Joseph as well. Maybe you use one of those two guys, one of the two power bats as a one-off. Maybe you use some of these other guys as, part of a stack if you're going to go up against Dickey, but I don't think this is the easiest spot on the day, so probably not going to have a ton of exposure to it. Next game we can talk about Cincinnati at Atlanta. Cincinnati is throwing Daniel Wright. Now, he's a guy who was projected as a starter, but he's basically been a relief pitcher for them this year. Although I think that with Alfredo Simon basically being relegated to the bullpen at this point, I mean, we're not going to see Simon start anymore from, the stuff that I'm reading. I think Daniel Wright's going to get an opportunity to start there. He is a right-handed pitcher, so probably looking at the left-handed bats in Atlanta. Freddie Freeman stands out the most, 362 WOBA, 211 ISO, probably the biggest bat that they have over there. I really like Malik Smith too, 380 WOBA, 212 ISO. I hate the fact that they're still hitting towards the bottom of the order. I really hope he gets moved up into the top part of the order because let's face it, I mean, he's a young kid. The Braves aren't really going anywhere this year. If this kid gets moved up to the top of the order, he hits very well against right-handed pitching. He's a left-handed bat, has a little bit of speed, can get some extra base hits for you, can steal a base, can score some runs. Haven't really seen the power out of him, but, with the young kids, the power is usually the last thing to come around, so I'm not too worried about it, although I wouldn't be expecting it today. Guys like Nick Markakis, Ender Inciarte, AJ Przinsky, all these left-handed bats I think are in pretty good spots. So if I was going to stack them up, I'd use those three guys. If I was looking to just kind of take, a little bit of exposure to this game, Freeman and Malik Smith are probably going to be the way. But remember, the game's in Atlanta, not a great hitter's park. Not really, I think they have a good matchup. They're going to go up against a pretty bad bullpen because Wright being a relief pitcher stretched out. I think he's only going to give us about 5 innings at most. So I do think that they could score a couple runs, but let's face it. I mean, this Atlanta offense has been one of the worst this year, so I wouldn't be expecting fireworks today. On the other side, we have Aaron Blair, right-handed pitcher. He's supposed to be a big prospect, but, right and left-handed bats are both hitting over 300 against them in limited innings this year. So he is a guy that's been getting knocked around. Joey Votto, the biggest left-handed bat they have, 404 WOBA, 236 ISO. I think he's somebody that's in play. Some of his numbers aren't that great this year, but if you look at the underlying numbers, people will tell you he's been unlucky. Low batting average at balls in play. He's still hitting the ball hard. His exit velocity is good. All the underlying stats that people look at kind of points to Joey Votto breaking out at some point this season. The next guy that we can look at if you're going to stay on the left side is probably Jay Bruce. 333 ISO. I mean, 333 WOBA, which is not good, but the 256 isolated power number means that, this guy can get a hold of one and jack one out. I hate using him in cash games, and his profile pretty much says he's not a cash game player, but he does have that home run upside that makes him an intriguing GPP option. The other guy that I want to take, like I said, Blair's been bad to both sides of the plate. So if you're looking for some power, I mean, Adam Duvall has been very, very good. He's not somebody who I ever think we're going to get a high average out of. But if he keeps jacking out home runs like this, he's another guy that falls in line with Bruce as a guy who's a, big GPP option. So if you're looking to take some, GPP options, I think Duvall and Bruce are two guys that you can, mini stack up together, along with Votto, who I also think is cash game safe, in this matchup here with Blair. Next game, we can talk about Detroit at the Chicago White Sox. James Shields is on the mound for the White Sox. For those of you who don't know, he was traded over to the White Sox. This is his second start that he's making for them. His first start, he got lit up. His last start before he got traded, he got lit up. I mean, he just hasn't been good lately. So, I don't really know. Normally, left-handed bats is the way you want to attack him, but even right-handed bats have been hitting him this year. They do have a high home run rate against them, too, and he's had a high home run rate against righties and lefties for a couple years now. And I think that's a good thing. I mean, the only real left-handed bat on Detroit is going to be Victor Martinez, 13 of 47 lifetime against Shields with the home run. So he's done all right against them. And then you look at some of the righties. You got guys like Miguel Cabrera, very big sample size here. 19 hits in 55 at-bats with 2 home runs against Shields. So I think he's in play today as well. It kind of stinks on DraftKings because you got to choose between the two, and I think I'd still rather go Miggy. But if you're playing over on FanDuel and you want to stack them up, you can use Victor Martinez at catcher, which I think will be a smart option today. And then put Miguel Cabrera at first base and, kind of get them both in your lineups. I also like J.D. Drew. He's 6 of 18 lifetime against Shields with the home run as well. We want the guys that have a little bit of power. You look at guys like Kinsler and Castellanos, they have not done all that great against Shields. And like I said, Shields is normally tough on right-handed bats, although this year he's been bad to both righties and lefties. On the other side of this game, we got the young guy, Matt Boyd. Right-handed bats, higher average, more home runs against him, although it is limited innings that he's had in the major leagues, but it seems to be the way. I think that spells out a good spot here for Todd Frazier. 370 WOBA for him, 344 isolated power score, which is huge. Ton of power on this guy. I think he has 19 home runs already this year, which puts him towards the top. I don't think he's the leader, but I think he's like second or third in the league in home runs. So I think this is a great spot for him. With Jimmy Rollins being designated for assignment, he's not going to be in the lineup. They brought up Tim Anderson, who's a young prospect that they have. They hit him 9th in the order the other day. I'm hoping he gets back up there towards the top, maybe takes over the role that Rollins had as like the 2-hole hitter. If they can put him up in the 2-hole behind Eaton and in front of guys like Abreu and Frazier, I think they're going to get a little bit of production, a little bit more production at least out of this kid. He's still kind of cheap, I think like 2,700 or so. So if he's not batting 9th again, I think he's somebody you can look at. Has profiled well against left-handed pitching in the minors. So should be a guy that can get on base, not a huge power guy, but he can get some hits. He can score some runs, maybe even steal a base or so and add that in for us as well. And like I said, he's pretty cheap. So we're not asking him to do too much to pay off value in a cash game. Next game, we're going to talk about Cleveland at KC. Carlos Carrasco on the mound for Cleveland. And, man, he's tough on both right and left-handed bats. Both of them are hitting about 220 or less against him over the course of the last 3 years. There are two guys who have hit him well on the Royals. Lorenzo Cain is 8 of 22 lifetime against them. So those are some pretty good numbers. And Eric Hosmer, 391 WOBA, 196 ISO for him, 6 of 19 lifetime against Carrasco. So he's over 300 as well. Those would probably be the only two guys I'm looking at. But honestly, KC's not a great hitter's park. And this is it's a tough spot. So I'm not really looking to pick on Carrasco with any of these guys on the Royals. On the other side of this game, we got Edinson Volquez up, and right-handed bats actually have a higher average against them over the last 3 years, although they do have a low home run rate. But I guess that kind of qualifies him as a little bit of a reverse pitcher. Now, Cleveland has hit him pretty well going back, the last couple of years. Kipnis is somebody, even though he's a lefty, that has really done well against Volquez. 6 of 17 lifetime with the home run, 374 WOBA, 167 ISO score since the start of 2015 against right-handed pitching. So I think Kipnis is in play here today. And then I'd actually look at the other lefty too, Lonnie Chisenhall down there in the order a little bit. 5 of 12 lifetime against Volquez with 2 extra base hits. So I'm probably shying away from the righties, definitely looking at the lefties. Maybe you can throw a Francisco Lindor in, but he doesn't really, I don't really think this is a great matchup for him per se. He's going to be batting from the left side where Volquez is actually a little bit tougher against the lefties. Hasn't done great against him in his lifetime. So as much as I like Lindor, it's not like he's a screaming play today. Probably only something I'll throw in a couple GPP lineups. Next game we can look at LA Dodgers against Arizona. Got Zach Greinke up on the mound. Left-handed bats this year are hitting 280 against him. The high average is really what's been hurting him. He's still pretty tough on righties like he's always been. Lefties don't normally hit 280 against him. They're normally in the 220, 230 range against him. He has pitched great in 3 of his last 4 starts, though, so it does look like he's corrected whatever mistakes were hurting him early in the season this year. The Dodgers do have a lot of left-handed bats, and they kind of know him from his days pitching for them. So I think he could be in a little bit of trouble here. You got guys like Corey Seager, 381 WOBA, 227 ISO, probably easily my favorite shortstop play here on the day. You can go with some of these other left-handed bats and, Adrian Gonzalez, although the upside's kind of limited. Jock Peterson, a good GPP play for, one-off home run kind of thing. Yasmani Grandal, still pretty cheap as a catcher option that you can use there. I mean, basically whatever left-handed bats get their way into the lineup, I think are in a pretty good spot here against Greinke. I would not use any of the righties. I don't think it's a smart move. Even though a guy like Justin Turner, good in righty-on-righty matchups, Greinke's a lot tougher on the righties than he is on the lefties. So the lefties is the way I'd want to go after him. Although, again, on a 10-game slate, you don't really need to do that. On the other side of this game, we got Mike Bolsinger pitching. He is a pretty good high K guy, about a K per inning or better, but he's only going about 5 innings per start. This is just his 5th start off the DL. They're kind of limiting him to 85 pitches. You can see it. He hasn't thrown over 85 pitches in any of his starts. Whenever he gets to that 85th pitch, whatever batter he's facing is pretty much his last batter. So I don't think you can look for a ton of upside out of him, but he has been tough on opposing batters. Left-handed bats is the way you probably want to attack him, which means a guy like David Peralta. Now that Peralta's back, he's the big left-handed bat in that team. 385 WOBA, 221 ISO since the start of last season. You know, I know everybody loved Jake Lamb, and a lot of people had been playing him while Peralta was out. Peralta's a much better hitter than Lamb is. So if you're going to have exposure, Peralta's probably the guy that you want, you know, with Lamb being a distant second. He has a 344 WOBA, 176 ISO, so he's not a horrible play here, but I do think you can do better, especially if you got to pay up a little bit for him. The only other guy I want to mention is Paul Goldschmidt, righty-on-righty matchups, 399 WOBA, 236 ISO. The guy's just so good that it doesn't matter righty or lefty. You know, he's still going to be able to get his hits. They're in a good hitter's park. Pretty sure this game's in Arizona, so, you know, I do think you want to have some exposure to it because we do tend to see a lot of runs come out of that stadium. Next game up is Minnesota at LA. Ricky Nolasco on the mound. Let's see, 71 innings pitched this year, 46 runs allowed. So he should be giving up some runs here today. Right and left-handed bats over 270 against him the last 3 years. So both sides of the plate hit him pretty well. You look at this Angels team, though. I mean, the only bat that I ever really want is Mike Trout. And remember, Mike Trout left the game early yesterday. Socha said he's good to play, but just make sure he's in the lineup before you go ahead and throw him in there. 414 WOBA for him, 285 ISO, 3 of 10 lifetime against Trout. So he's somebody else that I think, you know, we definitely want to have some exposure to. Albert Pujols has good BVP in this matchup against Nolasco, 13 to 28 lifetime with 3 home runs. Some of that dates back to like 2006 or 2007, although even in his recent at-bats against him, he's done pretty well against Nolasco. So I do think he's another guy that you can look at if you're looking for a, you know, maybe a low-owned tournament flyer. He does do well in righty-on-righty matchups, especially with the power. That's where you see a lot of his power. On the other side of the mound, we got Jared Weaver, who's been pretty bad this year. Both left and right-handed bats are over 300, has a huge fly ball rate, gives up a lot of home runs. You know, you're looking at this Minnesota team, and I really want to take guys against Weaver, but they don't have anybody who has over a 352 WOBA against right-handed pitching. You know, Byung-Ho Park's 231 ISO score and only 160 at-bats is about the only respectable ISO score on the team, so he's probably the best chance to hit a home run. You know, I mean, I really want to do this, but I just really don't see – I really just don't see how we can do this. I just don't think it's a very good matchup overall, so – you know, I think the Minnesota bats, normally you want to take guys against Weaver. I think I'm either going to stack up Minnesota in a tournament or I'm just going to fade them all together because it's not like there's anybody that's standing out to me as, you know, you must play, have to have this guy in your lineup. Next game is Texas at Oakland. We got Sean Manaea on the mound, and he's been tough on left-handed bats. He's a left-handed pitcher, but righties are hitting 317 against him with a home run every 5 innings pitched. So you look at a guy like Adrian Beltre, you know, huge WOBA, 388, 225 ISO score. He has a game-time decision, though. He has sat out, I think the last 2 games over the weekend. I know he didn't play yesterday. I don't think he played Saturday either. So if he's out, you'll probably get Jurickson Profar in there playing third base, which is what we've seen. If Profar's in there, he's at the top of the order. He's another right-handed bat I like. The guy's just on fire right now, and if he's going to be on top of an order that's got a little bit of, you know, a little bit of pop in it right now, I think he's somebody we have to look at. Ian Desmond with Beltre out would probably be my favorite play. You know, he's having a very good bounce back year this year. He's got his WOBA and his ISO up 365 and 199 since the start of 2015. You know, he's been hitting very well. I think we can look at him. I also think we can look at a guy like Ryan Rua, first base and outfield eligible, hitting well lately, still pretty cheap. You know, 351 WOBA, 192 ISO. So the numbers kind of profile pretty well since the start of last season, and like I said, he's been pretty hot lately, so I think those numbers are even a little bit better than you know, I think he's even playing a little bit better than what the numbers say right now. So Rua, Desmond, Profar, you know, Beltre if he's in there, those are the right-handed bats are the guys that we want to look at. On the other side of this game, we got Cesar Ramos, another lefty. Only about 5 innings max is how far he's gone in most of his starts this year. Right-handed bats have the higher average and more home runs against them. So a guy like Danny Valencia is in an amazing spot here. 399 WOBA, 228 ISO, hitting in the middle of that order, been tearing the cover off the ball lately. definitely want to have some exposure at third base to Danny Valencia today. Marcus Semien, who, Josh over at RotoCurve called as his, home run of the day on Saturday, was a big home, or yesterday, I think it was a big home run that he hit. This is a guy who hits left-handed pitching very well. So he gets another left-handed pitcher today, one that struggles with right-handed bats. He hits lefties well. Semien definitely somebody in play as a shortstop option. You can look at Chris Davis if you want for power, but Davis actually prefers power and righty-on-righty splits. So I don't think it's a horrible matchup for him, but I also don't think it's the easiest spot. If I'm stacking up Oakland, though, and using guys like Valencia and Semien, definitely want to have Davis in there too. Valencia is probably going to hit third or fourth. Davis fourth or fifth, and Semien will probably be somewhere around fifth or sixth if they don't move him up to the 2-hole. Next game, we can talk about Miami at San Diego. Wei-Yin Chen, the lefty on the mound for Miami. Right-handed bats the last 2 years, hitting about 270 against them. And he's given up a home run at, better than every 6 innings. A guy like Matt Kemp is in a good spot. 373 WOBA, 250 ISO against left-handed pitching. Hits left-handers very well. A guy like Will Myers, 357 WOBA, 159 ISO. Another guy that hits lefties well. Then you got guys like Derek Norris and Yangervis Solarte. I think both of those guys are worth a look. So, Solarte and Norris, depending on the price, I wouldn't mind having them in my lineups either. The other side of this game, we got Colin Rea on the mound. Limited innings pitched, right-handed bats actually have a higher average against them, so a little bit of a reverse splits guy early on. I think I'd probably rather look at some of these lefties here, though. Guys like Yelich and Dietrich are two guys that do hit right-handed pitching well. Yelich is the more solid average kind of guy who's probably the better cash game play. Dietrich's been struggling a little bit with the wrist injury, but he's a little bit more of a power pop kind of guy, especially if you use him at second base where you don't usually get a lot of that. 371 WOBA, 205 ISO against right-handed pitching, even though he's been struggling a little bit lately. Like I said, he had some kind of wrist injury that seems to be affecting him. He's got a lot of offers in the last couple games if you look on the schedule. So I probably wouldn't use him in cash, but I do think he's a decent GPP upside option. Last game on the day is Milwaukee at San Francisco. We got Matt Cain pitching. Left-handed bats hitting 337 against him this year. Right-handed bats hitting 278. Righties and lefties have hit him hard in 2016. And Milwaukee's not really great against right-handed pitching, but Cain has been that bad where I think they could be viable. But I think it could go either way. I think you either stack up a whole bunch of Milwaukee bats and think that Cain's going to stink and they're going to light him up, or you completely stay away. I don't think there's any way I would put Matt Cain in there today. But I also don't think there's too many guys that I would use on Milwaukee as like a standalone one-off guy, maybe outside of Ryan Braun. He's got about a 352 WOBA, I think, big 200-plus ISO score. He's actually down a little bit this year in righty-on-righty matchups, but normally he's pretty good there. Jonathan Lucroy, another guy, decent righty-on-righty, 350 WOBA-ish. You can also look at Jonathan Villar on top of that order. Leading off, he's a guy that I like, has some stolen base potential, has a little bit of pop, has hit a few home runs lately, gets multiple hits, gets a maximum number of at-bats. Remember, San Francisco, not really the greatest hitter's park, though. I do think that with Cain giving up a high home run rate, though, Chris Carter could be a guy. If you're stacking up Milwaukee, I would make sure I use Carter because he does have the power to go yard in a one-off kind of fashion. But like I said, I think that's about it. If you want another left-handed bat to throw at him, Scooter Gennett is another guy there, but he doesn't really have much upside for me, and I haven't really been using him much in cash either, so, I'm probably going to shy away. On the other side, for Milwaukee, Chase Anderson is pitching. Now, right-handed bats have a higher average against them. Left-handed bats are only hitting 160 in 2016, and we're talking like 28, 32 innings pitched against left-handed bats, so it's not a huge sample size, but it is pretty significant. It's a pretty good chunk of the season. He's seen a lot of lefties already, and he's been pretty tough on them. He's been good in his last two starts, but he does have a tougher test today. I think those last two starts were against Oakland and Philly, who are not exactly the greatest offenses we have in the league. San Francisco isn't either, but I think they're better than those two offenses are. In the righty-on-righty situation, which has been Anderson's weakness, I think Buster Posey's the guy that stands out. 344 WOBA for Posey. He's been showing off the power stroke lately. Had a couple at-bats a couple weeks ago, has been starting to hit him a little more often now. So he's somebody I think you can look at. And then if you want to go with left-handed bats, I know Joe Panic and Denard Span have had pretty good success against Anderson in limited at-bats so far in the past. So those would be the two left-handed bats I'd go for. Brandon Belt actually has not hit him well, so I'd probably shy away from Belt altogether there. And that wraps it up. That's all 10 games that we have on the slate today. Sorry that I wasn't here at the end of last week for you guys. I had a family wedding that I had to attend, but I'm back, and I'll be bringing you another section of Benny's Bats every day this week, Monday to Friday, over at RotoCurve. If you have any questions, feel free to hit us up on Twitter or over in the chat at RotoCurve. If I'm not there, either Josh or maybe Ricky or somebody else will be there to answer any questions that you do have. So thank you guys for joining us here at rotocurve.com. And as always, stay classy, DFS.